Hello, everybody, and welcome to Crafty Adults. We've got a lot of people here already, so we're going to go ahead and just get started. My name is Laura, and I work here at the library in the Adult Services Department, and I help coordinate these events, so welcome. Crafty Adults is a monthly series that we've been hosting for a couple of years now. In case you're new, we do plan to offer these in 2021 as well. We'll be moving to one session per month that's a little bit larger, so we're excited about that. Let's see here. Each session we focus on a different creative project that can usually be completed within about an hour. Some give or take. This one's going to be a little bit longer. We're very excited because today we actually have a special guest. We have Melanie from Canvas and Corks here to teach us how to paint a beautiful winter scene. So super excited that we have a teacher here for you today. Melanie owns a painting studio in Monticello, and she hosts and teaches painting parties. She has different options. She is doing some in-person classes right now, as well as I believe doing some online, so we're very lucky to have her here today. I'm very happy that we get to host her. So before we get started with the webinar, we're going to go over a couple of housekeeping things. So this over to Melanie, and she's going to get us started with our class. And if I missed anything, Melanie, please feel free to let us know, and we're going to go ahead and get started here.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Laura. I appreciate it. My name is Melanie, and yes, I am the one who has the art party studio in Monticello. I typically have people in the studio, but this year has been so different. I'm probably one of the slow learners to Zoom, but I'm happy to be here. If we have any issues at all, if you couldn't hear what I said, or if you need me to repeat something, feel free to reach out at any time. I'm very used to having the face-to-face interaction. So without that, I would really encourage anybody to feel free to communicate as much as you'd like. And I would love to see your pieces at the end. That's part of the joy of doing something as a group together. If you have any questions either about the painting or about what I do, feel free to ask. We'll try to make this as social as possible. So tonight I've created some pieces that would lend themselves to some creativity on your end. As you can see here, I've got 3 different color schemes. And so with just the paints that were provided, we're able to do a variety of different, and I think you had a picture of all 3 too. So this one would be done in just red. This one's a combination of red and blue, getting purple hues. And then this is just blue, and all of them are really different and unique. But even within just those this color palette, there's still a lot of creativity that you can add into it as well. You can kind of play with the colors and mix them around, maybe do a combination of a couple, and really just have fun. The basis for this painting is a very simple thing that can be done in one tone or in multiple tones. So I'm just going to walk you through, like I would in person, a step-by-step class, and just teach you some skills on how to do some things, and we'll get into some tree building and things like that as well. So typically with acrylic paintings, and that's what we're using tonight is acrylic paints, everybody should have little cups of paint, and I'll let you know how to get started with those soon. These paints are not wonderfully clothing friendly. So if you have a gym shirt or something that you don't really care about, that's the way to avoid any issues. Otherwise, I see Laura put a link into the chat. If you get paint on you, there are ways to get it out, especially if it's not dry yet. It's not too bad, just some soap and water. But check out that link if you have any issues. I tried not to set up too much so that I could show you what's going on. We're going to do a little rundown of our supplies. So first and foremost, everybody should have a cup of water of some kind. I grabbed this one from the studio. Yeah, I use these at the studio because they have a nice big round bottom, not likely to tip over. So as long as it's heavy or, you know, somewhat substantial, you'll be fine. We just don't want the weight of our paintbrush to knock it over. So probably not like a styrofoam cup or anything. The acrylic paints do wash out of off of plates and off of cups just fine. It's just clothing. So your cups will be fine if you need to rewash those. And then everybody should also have a plate of some kind. I am just going with your standard paper plate tonight. Styrofoam works really well because it's even less water absorbent. So I just grabbed a paper plate, but again, if you need to use one of your real plates from home, don't worry, the acrylic paint does wash really nicely off of anything that's not porous. So you'll be good there. And then you've also all got a canvas. Typically for my classes, I'll draw on the canvas, but that's not necessary tonight. All of this is going to be done one step at a time, super easy steps, and I'll show you how to do that too. Everybody also should have a large brush and a medium and a small brush. And I just like to plop those right into the water. And I'm kind of a creature of habit, but if you keep them in the water, then they won't dry out on you. The beautiful thing about acrylic paints is that they dry very quickly, which gives us a nice painting that's dry within 10-15 minutes of us finishing that we can hang on a wall. But they'll also dry out in your brushes. So I would recommend just leaving those in your water cup while you're working. And if you're ever not using a brush, just leave it in the water. It won't dry out on you. All right, now's the fun part. So we are gonna get started by doing a step that really helps loosen you up and it helps the canvas out a little bit. So I'm gonna put my canvas I'm working on right here in the middle. So you can still kind of see some of the color references from my original templates that I made for this class. And we are going to start with our large brush. These large brushes hold a lot of water. So I'm gonna just kind of strain it out a little bit before getting started, but we want to just dampen the canvas a little bit. And the reason why I said this loosens you up is because you can get a feel of how the brush feels against the canvas with no, there's no risk. We're just gonna paint with water. So I'm gonna start at the top of my canvas and just with long brush strokes back and forth, just apply a little bit of water onto the canvas. I think of it a lot like conducting, like my wrist is leading and my brush is following, and you can kind of get a feel of your canvas. Some of the water will immediately absorb in, some will kind of bead up on the top, but we're just gonna start at the top and work our way down. If you have your canvas lying on a table, then it's not gonna be up and down. That's okay too. Again, we're just wanting to get the whole canvas a little bit damp. And the reason why this is good for the canvas is because it's bone dry. And so that first layer of paint that you would go to put on it would just have a really hard time laying down on it. So we're gonna just gently rub some water over the top. And like I said, some of it will absorb right away, some of it will bead up on the top, but that's okay. Just a really nice little layer of water, and it will continue to soak in as we move around. You can tell what's wet if you look at it sideways and there's a little bit of a shine on it. That's how you can tell that your canvas has gotten some water on it. I think I'm gonna just do a little bit of color options with you and then I'll just pick one to go with. Honestly, I'm still undecided, but I'm gonna figure it out. So we've got our plate here. And we're gonna pick, you might wanna just kind of think about which color direction you wanna go. The blue is very nice and kind of frosty feeling, but I really like the purples too with the blended. So because the blue and red are simplified versions without any color mixing, I think I'll probably go ahead and do the purple so that you can see that. So whichever color you want to be your primary color of the painting, it's going to be key that you pick that out and kind of have an idea of where you're going. Now you can switch it up. You can make a red sky with blue trees. You could make blue sky with purple trees, but I am just going to show you if you were to keep one color scheme throughout, just like I did in my templates, okay? feel free to be creative. This is not a college course. You can have fun. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the more complicated one, which is going to be the purple, because that is a mix of your blue and your red paint. So we all have these little cups of paint here, and we've overestimated the amount that you're going to need because we wouldn't want anybody to run out at home. So I'm just going to pop the top on one of these little cups here. And then what I like to do is use a brush to scoop it out. And since I'm going to be using my large brush first, if you want, you can grab up your large brush and just scoop whatever some of that primary color is that you're going to use. I'm going to scoop up some blue, and I like to put it right at the edge of my plate. And that way, when I'm picking up the paint, I can use that edge to get the excess off instead of my pool of paint just getting bigger and bigger and taking over the plate. So I'm going to scoop a little bit of blue and just slap it right there on the side of the plate. And then for a purple, I'm going to need both red and blue mixed together. So I'm going to pop open the top on that little red there. And in my experiment earlier, I actually found that I needed a little bit more blue than red to make a nice purple. You will find if you're making purple, the ratio between the blue and the red is going to, depending on what your ratio is, it's going to create different shades of purple. So I'll kind of show you this one I created earlier in purple. It's a little bit different than my original purple, but it's kind of got a nice softness to it. So every time that you make a purple, it's going to be a little bit different. You can lean your purple a little towards the red and it will be more maroon, or you can lean it a little more towards the blue and it will have almost like a periwinkle type feel to it because it's going to have more blue in it. So with a little bit of red and blue, I'm going to mix these two together with my big brush, kind of just sticking close to the original side of the plate that I was at. And right now my color is leaning very maroon. So since my other one leaned a little blue, I mean, I think that's fine too. I can do this with the maroon. So that's actually another color scheme that you could go with because it's a different color than your purple. That maroon is going to carry a little bit more red in it. So whether you're working with blue, red, or purple, let's go ahead and get those main primary color or the main color ready that you're going to use primarily for your painting. I think I'll add just a touch more blue into my red by scooping up some more blue with my brush and just mixing that in. Now, at some point during the class, you might need to mix more of your purple. Just depending if you're doing purple, you might have to make some more if you run out. All right, so that is good to go. I've got my color that I'm working with. So a lot of times what I like to do is kind of explain this step before we do it. And I happen to have made this template while I was playing with the colors and just seeing how it was going to go. But it actually demonstrates really nicely what we're doing with the background. I think I'm going to see if I can get you just a little bit closer. The box makes a great easel. That's wonderful. That's such a good idea. Sorry, that was such a smart thought. So what I'm going to show you here is what we're going to be doing with the background. And we start with our pure color up here in the corners, and we're making kind of this upside down U kind of arch. And our primary color is its darkest at the top, and then we add a little bit of white in, and a little bit more, and a little bit more until it gets very light. And then we wash our brush out, and then we're going to cut across with that pure color again and do the same method so that we get two planes of existence. We have our sky, and then it's cut by the horizon, and then we have a ground level to set our trees on. So I just wanted to show you that before we get started. So now I'm going to take my pure color. I know it's purple, so I had to make it, but that's going to be my primary color I'm using. And I'm going to take my large brush, and I'm going to start up here in the corners with this very exaggerated upside down U shape. I can kind of show that to you just a little bit. You can see the water on the canvas is instantly helping me be able to move smoothly across. So the first thing that I want to do is kind of establish this upside down U shape. And then we're going to paint the corners with our pure color. So I've got this really beautiful purple going on. So this is the main shape that we want to have, that pure color really resonating. And my brush stroke, I'd like for it to be able to be seen. So this kind of brush is very, you can almost see the bristles. They're very strong, and so we get some really beautiful brush strokes out of it. So throughout the background while we're working, just keep that really nice long U shape, upside down U shape going. And that's the base for the beginning. Now I want to pull a little bit of that down, and I have not added any more into my brush, so I just have a little bit left in my brush. And I'm just going to pull the rest of that down. So you can tell because I didn't put any more in my brush, I was running thin. That was what we were hoping for. Now I'm going to use, my medium-sized brush, just because my large brush is messy right now. I'm going to use my medium-sized brush. And let's scoop some white onto your plate as well. So again, I'm just putting it onto the edge of the painting, or of the plate, so that I can easily access it. I scoop some white on there. And I'm just going to set that little cup aside. So now I'm going to just take a little bit, and you can barely see my white on my plate. I'm going to take a little bit of my white and add it into the side of my purple. So I'm not getting rid of all of my purple, I'm just mixing a little bit of white into the side. Now you can see that it's a value lighter. We want it to be kind of a medium. So a medium purple, medium red, medium blue, a little bit of white added into it. It's not completely light, but it is lighter noticeably than the last color we used. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna overlap some of this thin purple and work that lighter color into the next set of my background colors. And we're going to blend these upwards all the way up until we get to kind of the pure corners, and we're going to leave those pure, and we're just going to blend this lighter color purple in. So just to recap, we started with the really dark upside down U, and then we added a little bit of white to blend into it. Now I'm going to grab a little bit more white and blend that into my purple. So now I've got a really light purple, and we're going to continue on downwards. So what we're looking for here is a really subtle kind of transition between the shades of purple, so that it starts off the darkest up high and then gets lighter. It is important to emphasize the lighter. You want more of your canvas, so if you check mine out, you want more of your canvas to have the lighter tones and leave the darker tones for closer to the top. The reason we need to do that is because we need our primary color to stand out against our light background. So you really want to push the whites into your background color. So I started with the pure, then a little bit more white, then a little bit more white, and now my last little bit down here, I'm going to give another dose of white. And I'm just adding white into that main color on the side. So if you look here, you can actually see all the different tones. My primary that I started with, then a little bit lighter, then a little bit lighter. And I'm going to push this center just even more so light. So I want to give everybody some time to kind of work on that, blending all the way down. The only part I'm not going to worry about is like the very bottom edge. But I do want you to continue that brush stroke all the way through in that upside down U shape, like so. So let's just work on a nice gradual change from top to bottom, starting with the dark and getting to the light. Something else I really like to do for my paintings at the studio or personally is whatever color is touching the outside edge, If you wrap that around and paint your edges, then you can hang it up on your wall and it feels like a completed piece. It doesn't need a frame. Really good for seasonal decorations. You can switch these out. Lightweight, couple thumbtacks, and you're good to go. So I highly recommend painting your edges. I'll show you an example. So like this guy up here, painting those edges to match the painting is really going to be a really successful, beautiful piece.
And everybody, how you doing? Feel free to let me know in the chat if you want. I don't have anybody with questions yet, but if you have them, feel free to ask. Yeah, we want to hear from you.
So after stepping away from my piece for just a second, I kind of had lost some of my dark, so I'm just going to add a little bit of that back in. And again, use your own judgment, but you just want to have a nice gradation from dark to light, kind of mimicking this upside down U shape. And yeah, is everybody doing okay? I'm painting those edges now too. Oh, a little tip about painting the edges. When I paint the edges, I like to pull from the back side of the canvas forward like this. Because if you pull from the front to the back, what happens a lot of times is you wring out your brush and you end up with a big line of paint that can sometimes even drip. So when you're coming on the sides or the top, I would just pull from the back to the front, and that kind of helps avoid any of that drippage that you might get later. I'm going to do this side blind. Another really nice thing about acrylics too is that you can work over the top of them. So once a layer is dry, if you want to go back and add something else over the top of it or make a correction, it's really easy to do with acrylic paints, because once they're dry, you can paint over the top of them. So there's little room, like on if you need to make a correction, it can happen. It's pretty easy. You just kind of wait for it to dry and then go back and add the color you meant to put there. Okay, so the second step is, and I'm going to consider that the first step, even though you did some intricate blending and some brush work, getting that nice line work going in throughout. I guess before I'll move on, I'll tell you, this is a really nice smooth transition. If you are someone with a little bit more of a bold flair, you can definitely do some intense like streaks. So I oftentimes volunteer to be the guinea pig if there's something different or weird you could do. So I'll just do that real quick so you can see. If you'd like a little bit more drama into your background, you can take just a little bit of white on the tips of your brush. So I clean out my brush in preparation for the next step, but if not, you can clean out your brush, just get most of that water out of it. And if you want a little more drama, you can take some white and kind of streak in a little bit of white. Now, these are super bold, so you could leave it like that, or you can just blend it a little bit, and you can just have a little bit more of a dynamic type feeling in your background. See how much more the brush strokes kind of show up when you add that really intense white. You could also do this the other way around. So if you wanted to add just a little bit of pure purple in areas where it doesn't really belong down here, you can also get some of that as well. But I recommend just in general having it be a dark to light, but you can definitely have a little more drama down here if you'd like. If you try it out and you're like, oh my goodness, that looks like stripes, no worries, because you can just go back over it with your large brush, and the more you blend, the softer it's going to get. So there's really no going wrong here. Again, feel free to add your own flair to it. And I'm a sucker for drama, so I'm going to do a little bit more of those lines in there. So yeah, I'm going to consider the, sorry, my water's a little bit too far away now that I've moved my computer closer. So now that we've got the background, the sky that transitions from the dark to the light. Now we're going to be starting on the ground level. And like I showed you before in my pre-template, this is basically the same step, except we're going to be creating a ground. So now I'm going to go clean my brush out. And so you clean your brush out just by tapping it gently in the bottom of your water basin like this. Do, 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 do. All my purple coming out. And then again, squeegee out that extra water. These big brushes hold a lot of water. So just get most of that out. Sometimes I even use my 2 fingers and take it like this and back in the cup. So now we're going to go back to our main color. So whether you're using red, blue, or purple, we're going to clean out our brush and go straight back to the darkest version of this color. So I'm just going to take the tips of my brush and grab a little bit from the front and the back. So I've got my brush loaded up a little bit with some paint. You don't need a ton. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come up about 4 inches on the canvas. And we're going to make a really soft hill. So this does not have the huge archwork that we were working with in behind where it was like a big windshield wiper. This is just a really nice smooth arch that's about 4 to 5 inches from the bottom. And just kind of lay out a line that can be your center point for your ground, your horizon. So I've kind of found the line there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work this main color back and forth, letting my brush strokes be really visible, and just working it downwards, and let my brush slowly run out of paint. And then just like in the background, I'm going to add a medium hue by adding a little of white, and then a lighter hue with a little bit more white. So I'm actually going to come back to a pile that I previously used that's kind of a middle shade. And I'm going to add some of that middle shade in there. Feel free to make more of any color you need at any time. And also this is being recorded, so if you feel like I'm going too fast, and I hope I'm not, but if I am, you can always come back and re-watch this. So if I get ahead of you, don't feel rushed. You can take your time. So each time that I go downwards, I'm just going to add a little bit more white and blend the colors so that it goes from dark to light again. For this easel, I've got to stick my canvas so it kind of sits on the edge so I can reach that bottom edge. And I'm going to add a little bit more white into it. Here at the bottom, I'm going to get some of those more pure colors. So I've got a general transition between dark to light. Now again, I'm a sucker for the bold, so I am going to grab a little extra white and just put a few streaks of that down there and kind of blend them in a little bit. The lighter you go, the more your snow will really be the shining star of your piece. So just to back up and recap while you're working on that, we kind of repeated the steps that we did for the background in our low, slow hill. So we've created a horizon line with our darkest shade and then just slowly let it get lighter and lighter as it came down. And again, I highlighted it with a little bit of pure white down at the very bottom. Feel free to let your boldness fly. As long as we have enough lightness in your background that we can build our trees on and it's not too dark, we'll be in good shape. So I'm going to give everybody some time to work on that, and I'm going to also wrap these colors around on the edges. For this little hill, what I'll do is I'll just carry on the line as if it was wrapping around so that when we're viewing it from the side, it looks like a continuation. I'll just tilt this towards you a little bit here. So for this hill here, I'm just going to add a little bit of that pure dark on the side so that it looks like my hill kind of goes off the side there too. Give a little bit on that side too. I've usually got some tunes playing at the studio. I could put some on too.
Let me see if I can get some tunes going.
Okay.
And we'll hope they're not too loud. You'll have to tell me.
Oh, I beat you. My phone,
God.
I touched it and it started playing my Pandora.
I love it.
I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to go at war with you.
No worries.
Can you hear that okay?
Yeah, maybe turn it, for me, just turn it down slightly and I think it's good. Yeah.
Everybody doing okay so far?
Y'all let us know.
Yeah,
You should also, I'd love to hear how many people are doing the different colors. So tell us what color you chose to do. Are you doing purple, blue, red? We got couple purples, one red, 3 purples and 1 red so far. A lot of purples.
Well, that's cool. I mean, that was really kind of the harder one. So yeah. Props.
Way to go, everybody. Ooh, a pink. Kind of a pink. I like that.
So, like I said, I oftentimes talk about a step before I'm doing it. So if you're working on your background, that's absolutely fine. I'm not doing anything yet, but I am going to talk about it a little bit. I'm also going to give just a little bit, I'm going to scoot this over. I'm going to give just a little bit of a demonstration on this paper plate. I like to do this off the canvas and just kind of walk you through it sometimes. It seems to help to see it without the risk of paint first. So I gotta clean my brush out real quick. So I'm gonna be using my medium-sized brush for the construction of the evergreens. So I use that to get some white out of my tub. So I'm just gonna clean that out real quick.
While you're cleaning, I'm gonna say Kate here says that they've got 4 painting right now together. They've got a purple, a red, a blue, and a green. So whoever did green like went rogue and is doing their own thing, and I love that, and I want to see it.
Yeah, we definitely have to see these at the end, guys.
I was thinking too, green would be like kind of creepy and ominous when we were putting colors together, because I was like, oh, green might be kind of like X-Filesy, and I really like that, so I want to see it.
Yeah, kind of like Alien Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. I've got a blue here, and red, so I love it. We've got like all the spectrum here.
That's really awesome, and good job being creative and going for it. This is painting you can do in any color, so it's really kind of cool. So I am going to just show you a little demonstration about building evergreens before I get onto the canvas, just to put your minds at ease and also give you something that you can kind of watch first, and then I'll do it again on the canvas. So what we're going to be starting with is our darkest version of whatever color you're using for the base of the pine trees. And then we'll build them up with some snow and give them some texture. So to start with an evergreen, I'm just going to grab the most pure, darkest form of my color, which again, I'm using the purple. And then we start with a baseline, which our tree trunk is our baseline. And that's going to be a straight line from top to bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this medium-sized brush. If you check out the brush, you can have a wide side or a skinny side. And I'm going to be using the skinny side going down like this in a line. So I'm going to start at the top of my tree, and I'm just going to dab a downward line. So I've got a straight line. And this is what we're going to do to establish the base of our trees. Now, in my paintings, I like to do one big one in the middle, and then a couple of smaller ones on each side. Feel free to do whatever you want. If you just want one big tree, or if you want lots of trees, go for it. I will say the reason that I've got these about as far apart as they are is if I got them any closer together, then I wouldn't have these nice gaps in between that kind of show the distinction between the trees. So I guess that's a little word of warning. If you're going to add a bunch of trees, maybe leave little gaps in between, just enough to where we can tell the difference. So it starts with the line work down. And then primarily speaking, we are thinking about a triangle shape. But what I like to do is I like to start up, and I'm sorry if this isn't as close as it could be. I'm really close. So what I like to do is I like to start at the top, and I like to think of it as just like a little, that little shape that just kind of curves very subtly down and out. And then another one on this side that's down and out. I try not to make them perfect or to have them starting at the same place. So I kind of alternate back and forth. And I'm just giving myself a little tiny base of where the tree is going to go. And as they get farther and farther down, they're going to get farther and farther away from the tree. So you can really see that this could vary from being a skinny tree to a thicker tree. But my tip for you, start skinnier, and then you can always extend these out wider if you decide you want to have a tree that is much bigger. You can always bring those out, right, from those little starting points. So I kind of like to just start with that. So I'm going to leave this here for you to see over on the side. And now I'm going to show you on the canvas. So this is the actual painting again. Demo's over. So I'm going to grab up my primary color, and I'm sorry I keep saying that, but it's the one I'm going to use the most, not that it is a primary color on the color wheel. But I'm going to grab up the darkest form of that color, and right in the center of my canvas is where I want to put my first tree. So I'm going to come about 3-4 inches down, and you can kind of see whether you've got enough lightness there to really start there or not. You might want to start a little lower if your background's a little darker. And I'm just blotting in a little straight line. Now my line doesn't have to be perfect because it's a tree, it's a natural thing. So it's actually better if you're not using a ruler, because when you see things in nature, they've got their own little wiggles and quirks. So embrace those things. That's what makes trees kind of cool. So I'm going to start that line about 3 to 4 inches down from the top and work my way down. And then when I hit the horizon line, I want to come down another couple inches so that it's really planted on my foreground. So I've got this little line guy going here. And this is a pretty big tree. Now, the thing to worry about, again, is getting too wide before you mean it. So we're going to start with like little baby sprouts coming off the sides. And I like to do one side at a time. So I can think of these kind of curved down and out lines, almost like eyelashes. They come down and out. So the ones at the top, I really start very tiny and just give myself little tiny starts like that. So I'm not extending them the full length of the branch that it's going to be yet. And that way I can have a little bit more control over the shape. If you have a really wide top, it's going to have to get wider at the bottom. So we're just going to start with little indications of where those branches are going to go. And they don't all have to be exactly uniform. I'm going to let the ones down here be slightly bigger just because I know they will get there anyway. And so I'm just kind of alternating. I said I wanted to do one side at a time, and I ended up alternating. So whatever you're most comfortable with. You'll notice I didn't start the beginning of each branch perfectly where the other one was, so they're not doing this, but they're more staggered. You can have them more like this, but they're going to look a little bit less natural. So the staggering effect kind of gives a more natural tree look. Oh no, I'm sorry about your medium-sized brush. You can do this with your small brush, and because that happened, I'll just show you how. So let's say something terrible happened with your brush. and it didn't work.
Hypothetically.
Yeah.
No, we're just teasing. Someone said their medium brush was defective, so I'm really sorry. If anyone's brushes have some issues, I apologize. But do let us know, because that might change what brushes we purchase for these classes in the future. So let us know, and I'm sorry that your brush was defective.
Yeah, so because we are using the medium-sized brush, but we're using the skinny side of it to make kind of lines, you can actually switch over to your small brush pretty easily. So I'm just going to show that to you right now. I've grabbed my smaller brush, and for this, you'll just kind of want to do a little bit of dabbing in there. So you're just kind of giving the indication of where the branch is going to go. This shouldn't affect you too much, and when we get onto the brush texture, I'll go ahead and show that to you too. I knocked my music plumb off of the stand.
I wondered what that was.
Sorry about that. So I'll keep my small brush handy, and I'll try to continuously bounce back and forth, because you will be fine with either one. So now that I've got my kind of what I'll call the skeleton of the tree, it's very sad. It doesn't have much life or anything going on yet. What we're going to do next is we're going to actually develop that. So now I can look at the bottom and say, well, I want my tree branches to end about this wide. So now I can actually develop those into a little bit longer at the bottom, and they'll just slowly get skinnier and kind of create a triangular shape. So I just want to extend those beginnings just a little bit more now that I've got my skeleton in there. And I'm dabbing my brush, but I'm still using it sideways so that it's kind of going along the line. So I'm dabbing just along those. So we're already starting to see a little bit of texture just by the way I'm creating the skeleton. And I'm just extending them out a little bit longer so that I can have the fuller shape of the tree. So you want to build your tree out to where it looks about like this. And it's not done. That's still somewhat skeleton, but it's, you know, it's just a little bit more wide, and we've kind of brought the branches out about as far as we want. You can tell these ones at the top are still very small, and they just slowly get farther and farther and farther away from the base, so that we have a little bit of width there at the bottom so that it doesn't look too skinny. And everybody has different varieties of Christmas trees that they like, or evergreens. So if you really like the round ones, or if you really like the tall, skinny ones, you can really emphasize that in this painting and go with the ones that you feel express you more. So make your trees your own. One thing that I see all the time is that trees are as unique as you are when we're painting them. Do not think that it has to look just like mine. They will take on a life of their own. So.
I'm excited to see what people do as far as their trees go. If they go with the 3, or if we're doing more, or just 1. So I'm excited to see. I love how customizable this painting is.
Yeah, I think it'd be really beautiful with just 1 large tree, to be honest.
Yeah.
You could really fill this up if this were, you know, a little bit wider. You could really just emphasize 1 and have it be really beautiful. So yeah, me too. I'm excited for the possibilities. So now what I'm gonna do, our what I'll call a skeleton tree is pretty sad. It's pretty see-through. It doesn't have much sustenance to it. So now what we want to do is give it a little bit more foliage. I will say, let me pop this one forward again so we can take a look at it. So the foliage of the trees, it just fills it in quite a bit. You can still see some areas in between. You can still see places where the branches have their own definition, but we're just gonna fill it in and give it a little bit more life, I guess, a little more sustenance. So to do this, again, I'm just sticking with the same brush. If you've got your small brush, you'll be in fine shape too. But this time, the shape of the brush, we're going to use it to kind of stamp. And if you think of the shape of that, almost like a little branch that you'd put an ornament on. So the little bit of the evergreen tree that's sticking out, that's still covered in needles, but it's separate. You can actually use the shape of this to make it look like little bits of the evergreen tree. Now, if you're using your small brush, you'll actually be laying it down more. So let me show you that too for that one. So that if you've got your small brush, you can actually use it to stamp down like this by just kind of laying it down, and that's going to give you that same shape. So my medium brush, it's also giving me that kind of finger shape. And that's what we're going to be using to fill in our tree a little bit. I want you to think about gravity and about which way those might fall. So if we had an actual pine tree at our house, you know, I'm going to be using just a little tap, and I'm going to kind of have some of these. I want to make sure you can see it and that my hand's not in the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the top, and I'm just going to press and tap little bits to give some of that shape. So if you look at that top one there, see how I added little extras onto that tree branch? So there's little tiny fingerlings coming off. I'm also going to do that on this side. And we're just going to fill in our trees a little bit. So I like to put some kind of on the top of the branch and then on the bottom of the branch. And we're just giving it a little bit of texture. And again, still using that darkest shade of your paint. I like to have some that point up, some that point down. And then sometimes I'll even go into some of the blank areas. So right now it looks very perfect. Sometimes I'll just go in and add a couple extra blots in where there's nothing, just to give it a little extra character. So we're just gonna blot on top, blot up on bottom, and then fill in a little bit on the tree trunk itself. So where we've got these big open gaps, I also like to put just a little bit too. So go slow with this as we're building the tree, and just slowly add in some texture into your branches. I like to rotate this so that I get different angles so that it doesn't all look the same. You can kind of get into a methodical printing, and it'll turn out all your needles are facing the same way, like there was a big gust of wind. So try to rotate it to get a little bit of randomness into your variety of leaves. Not leaves, foliage. These are evergreens, they don't have leaves. So I'm just going to get real close here and show you again, just dabbing on the top side, kind of all the way around the branch like that. And so there's a big gap between these two. I don't like that, so then I always just put a little random in there to kind of fill it out. So let's just work our way down. We can jam out. Feel free to do any shout outs.
Yeah, everybody. I think too, I want to say also, I believe in the chat feature. If you're not comfortable with, you know, talking out loud, I believe you can change the chat feature. Instead of just saying to all panelists, you can change it to all panelists and attendees, and that will actually be something everyone can see. So feel free to use that too if you're not interested in using the microphone, but you have something to contribute. We'd love to read it. I'll read it out loud.
So we are just going to be filling in our trees with a little bit extra. I'll try to do a zoom in every once in a while and just show you. I'm just adding basically little fingers onto my branches all the way around and filling in those kind of blank spaces. If your tree color isn't showing up very well up against your background, and you feel like, man, it's not dark enough or something, you can always give it a second coat. So sometimes, like right here, it's a little thin, but if I hit it again, it's going to be darker. So feel free that if you've got any areas that have kind of gotten a little wishy-washy or they don't show up very well, you can always go back and give that a second coat too.
It's looking wonderful. So Melanie, I have a question for you. How long have you been painting?
How long have I been painting?
Yeah.
Well, I remember second grade being a big year for painting for me. And I've got a little story that I don't ever want to feel braggy about, but there was this guy teaching a class at Prairie Gardens when I was 8, and my grandma signed me up to go take his class. And it turned out later that she shouldn't have done that it was an adult class. And I was, and we went and learned how to make oil paintings from a guy called Bob Ross. And I actually got to one of his classes one time. I had watched him, but I did not know he was famous. I thought he was just a local guy on PBS. So that was pretty cool. And I'd say, you know, that was probably what really launched the career, you know, just set me right into it.
That's an amazing story, and I would definitely brag about that personally, because Bob Ross is an amazing painter. That's awesome.
He is. But yeah, I've always loved it. I had an aunt who was an artist, and I always looked up to her, and I guess I just always wanted to do it. My parents were like, you should go to college for something else because you scored really well on your tests, your SATs. Like, what are you doing? And here I am to show them you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. So did you end up going to school for art?
I did. I went to Parkland. I loved their fine art program. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I took a lot more classes than I needed. Made it a lot longer to get a degree when you're just taking art classes and not gen eds. But it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. Recommend it.
Yeah, same here. I went to the Fine and Applied Arts program at Parkland, and I also took classes at U of I, and I was surprised that not to diss anybody or anything at all, but I was so surprised at the quality and like the level of education that I got from the teachers at Parkland, even like comparing to the university where I obviously paid a lot more money. I was like, wow.
Yeah, awesome. I was very impressed with their fine arts program too. And in some cases, there were classes at Parkland that I had a lot of U of I students in because there was a certain, you know, niche that they had gotten to. I remember when 3D animation became big. That was being held at Parkland before the U of I, and I got to do that too. That was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Yeah.
So I've got this little tip for everybody. When you get to the bottom, right now it kind of looks like a tree that's had, you know, its hair parted to one side or the other, but we don't have that nice round bottom of the tree. And to get that illusion, we're going to add a couple extra branches. I'll do it on this one because it's a little more obvious first. So let's pretend I've got all of these filled in with all the foliage. When I get down here to the bottom, I actually want to do a couple that kind of come forward so that we get that roundness. So if our hair so far has been parted perfectly to the left, and I'm using analogies, obviously, the branches have been parted. When we get down here to the bottom, I'm going to grab a little bit more, and I'm just going to pull out a few segments, and I'm going to leave them super obvious for you at first. So the base of the tree actually has become one of these segments, and then I've got two that are kind of in the middle, so they're not quite as upright as the other ones, so they're kind of coming down at an angle. And I'll just go ahead and add some foliage onto those guys too. And then step away from it every once in a while, and you know, you can ask yourself, should I add another branch there? Should I add a couple extra little dots to just fill in a blank space? I like to leave as many of the little blanks in between so that you still have the shape of your evergreen trees, but adding enough so that they don't look like just little fuzzy fingers. You don't want them so separated So you need to have this happy balance in between having the foliage, having distinctive branch, but then also having a little bit of wishy-washiness in the middle where the foliage is overlapping. And that basically is the completion of one tree. That's my big one. That's my like main star of the show. When we add the snow on at the end, that's really going to be where the texture is just absolutely stunning. It pops forward. But for now, I'm just going to leave it alone and let that dry for just a little bit. Something else I kind of like to do on my evergreens is I kind of like the tops to be a little bit silly skinny at the top. I don't know why, but a lot of times I'll go back and just extend that top of the tree a little bit so that it really feels like it's got some towering height on it. These are just little quirks of mine with the way that I do it, and everyone is going to be different. So feel free to copy my stuff and go this direction, or if you don't like it, be like, nah, that's all right. So now that I've built my first tree, we're going to use the exact same methodology for building a couple other trees. I will make my 2 side trees smaller so that we don't lose the attention of the center tree. But I'm going to go sticking with the same brush and the same primary color with the darkest shade that you have. I'm going to go ahead and pencil in a couple, I'm just going to blot in a couple little lines on each side. Now this tree is going to go over the edge of my canvas a little bit because I put it pretty far to the right, but that's okay. And you'll notice my line is not straight, and that's okay because trees are natural, which means they have just as many little weird quirkinesses to them as we do to us. So I'm going to make that one over there, and I think I'll stick this one right about here. So this just helps us kind of plot out where we're going. I will say, again, be careful of how much intense overlapping you have, and try to leave some of those blank spaces in between your branches so that you don't lose all of your foliage and it will become one big kind of congealed thing. So again, pulling this guy out so you can see there is some overlap, but there's still places where you can definitely see the individual branches. So that's what I'm going to go for. I'm going to go ahead and start on the far side one here for myself. And again, so this is kind of a recap of the same steps. We're going to start with those little tiny baby shoots and give ourselves a little like kind of head start as to where our tree branches are going to come from. Just alternating back and forth, bringing them out a little bit, like so. These are like my skeletons. I'll go ahead and do the skeleton on both so that one's up and I'm in different stages. So here's my second one. And then again, we're just going to go back and just blot on with that edge of your medium brush, bringing out the branches a little bit first. So they slowly get wider as they get closer to the bottom of the tree. And by the bottom of the tree, no doubt they are going to be overlapping a little bit. Kind of give those little wonky ones down there at the bottom. And then we're going to fill in with some of that foliage. So I'm just tapping on the top and on the bottom sides of each of my branches to give these little like fingers where you'd hang your ornaments, hypothetically. If you celebrate Christmas. If you don't, you know, happy whatever you celebrate. I'm sorry if I made that too Christmassy. Wasn't trying.
I think it's all good. Man, everybody must be like super focused with our paintings because we aren't getting any communications at all. It's like crickets out there.
We're gonna hope that's a good thing, yeah. There are definitely periods of time in class where it gets very quiet, and that's the focusing times for sure.
And I say in like every Crafty Adults we do, and people that attend all of them are probably tired of it now, but I'm like, oh, it's just such a good time to zone out and like focus on your painting or whatever it is you're working on instead of like the million things swimming around our heads all the time. So I'm not
Yes.
offended that you're not talking to us, but
Enjoy your time.
yeah,
Yeah,
someone said so
it is.
relaxing. It
It's
is.
very nice to just not have to worry about anything. You know, this is therapy and this is getting away from it for a minute. And thank you for mentioning, I am still teaching some in-person classes. I'm not trying to pack the place though. We have a pretty low number for our square footage. I found out after I actually measured it that I've been teaching less than I was technically able to teach. But I had cut those numbers way down back in May when I was able to reopen. And so we only teach 10 at the studio at a time. And if you haven't been out to my studio, it's a nice big open space with lifted ceilings and lots of room. So if you ever really do need to get out of your house and zone out, it's nice to come and get away too. So yeah, we've got some things posted online for November and December, and they do fill up kind of fast with the limited spaces. But yeah, it's sometimes nice to just get away too.
Yeah, so if you enjoy this class and you enjoy Melanie's style, I invite you to check out her Facebook page, which there is a link on the handout that you have to her Facebook, and there is one on our website as well in the event. So anyway, you can learn more about her and sign up for her classes there too.
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah.
Yep, so just so you know where I'm at, I'm just filling in my side trees with some foliage now. I did notice that this one goes off of the side. That's a really good opportunity to wrap those tree branches on the outside edges too. Again, I just promise that it will like hold your illusion better if you do, because otherwise it looks like your tree will stop dead. So I'm just gonna wrap some of those little tiny bits of tree around on the side as well. So if you've got any that kind of wrap around on the edge, feel free to just wrap that. Whatever touches the side can go right around. And I'm just rotating my medium brush and trying to have random little fingerlings coming off of my branches. This part's a little bit tedious. It probably is the longest part, is filling in the foliage. And another little tip that I found, if you're having a hard time like seeing the forest through the trees, take a step back. I'm terrible, I'm sorry. I get bad puns from my husband. But take a step back and look at it from a little farther away. When you hang something on your wall, you're usually not observing it from 12 inches away, like you probably are now. And these actually, you can judge a little bit better from a distance, whether you need to add in a branch or if you want to make the top a little taller and skinnier, or whatever you might want to do. It's much more obvious from a distance, especially when we've been adding this texture for a little while. It starts to get a little bit, I don't know, monotonous. So if you need a moment, step away and kind of look at it from a distance. And usually to me, then it becomes really clear, oh, I should definitely go back and add some texture in there. If there's a spot that's just too bare or something like that, it becomes more obvious. And sometimes when they start to overlap, it really does become a little bit muddy. So I just do as little as possible when I'm overlapping and try to leave as many of these blank spaces in between to show where those tree branches are.
Yeah, I remember that from school. It was, just getting up and stepping back is such an important part of any art that you're doing. You get too like involved in it and it all just starts to look the same. So important.
It is. It is. I think my hardest thing about painting is not overworking it.
Yeah.
Stop. Like usually there's that moment when you're like, I should stop, but I'm gonna keep messing with it. If you're that person, I totally understand. That's me. I always have a hard time just stopping it. Like, okay, it's good, leave it alone. So that's where I'm at now. I'm feeling pretty good about my texture here. I'm gonna zoom in again. I assume that you can see pretty well, but I still like to get these like super close to the screen, like my grandma probably would. Like, can you see it now? But just so you can see some of the textures that are going in there. I will say too, where my dabs are thicker, it's darker. So if you want to add some really nice dark tones, you can always come back and just scoop up your paint really nice and thick and kind of blob it on to get some really nice dark areas. I will show you what I'm talking about, again, as the guinea pig. I never mind being the guinea pig. So I'm just gonna scoop up some of that really nice dark tone. And if I just dab it a little bit thick in a couple of areas, I can get some of those really nice deep tones. It does look like I was being pretty liberal in the first place, but if you're missing some of those nice dark tones, you can definitely hit it with a second coat or just blob it on a little bit thicker. And remember, periodically, if you've got anything touching the edges, just double check those and make sure you're wrapping around on the sides. So I'm going to keep moving on. Don't feel rushed if you're still working on your foliage. Again, you can go at your pace, but I will go ahead and just explain the next step to you. So what we're going to be doing next is we're going to be laying down our snow. And for this step, I really want you to think about gravity. So if I've got snow and I dump it on top of a tree from the sky, like I make snow, and I dump it on there, it's going to fall on those top edges, but your bottom edges aren't going to have as much on them. So I'm going to scoop this over the side here real quick, kind of show you what I'm talking about. So when I go to apply snow, I really think about gravity. I want to think about those top edges really being hit and maybe little bits of the tops of all of the branches. So you'll notice I did not cover the whole tree in white. We can still see the blue. The white should be less than the blue or the purple or whatever color. And we're going to start with a little bit of a lighter hand, and then you can always add more. Here's another example with the purple. The snow is going to be laying down somewhat on the top side of these branches. God, I feel like I have a lot of paintings going on, sorry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and scoop some white onto my plate so that I can use that. I've got my little tiny brush, so I'm going to make it work, and I'm just going to scoop some of that white out here on my plate with my tiny brush. I'm sorry, I feel like white is hard to see on the plate. So I'm going to be using my smallest brush for applying the snow because I'm going to have the most control over it. Most likely your paint from your trees is still a little bit wet too. So we're going to apply it very thick and just blot it on and like kind of leave the chunk there. So it's going to have some texture to it as well, which is kind of fun. It gives your painting an actual three-dimensional texture when you lay it on a little thicker. So I'm just going to go ahead and load my brush up. And when I say that, I mean just fill it up with paint on all sides. It's pretty thick on there right now. And I'm doing that again so that it doesn't mix with the paint underneath. I'm going to have it thick enough to where I can lay it down and it's not going to blend. If you start to blend with your color underneath, just stop, rinse out your brush, go back to the white, and start again reapplying the white. It will inevitably happen. That's why I gave the warning. You can also choose to wait, watch the video later, and then lay the snow on when it's dry if you want to. That's up to you. So I'm just going to go ahead and start at the top. I'll start at the top of my center tree. It's my biggest. And I think not only directionally am I thinking about the top side, but maybe I'll kind of lean top and to the left. Hopefully that's still your left. This way. So I'm just going to start blotting just a little bit gently, and look how bright that white is. It just really steals the show, the snow. And it doesn't take a lot. And I'm just going to blot on some top sides of some branches. And I'm just tapping and applying these little like kind of beaded lines of snow. And I'm just gonna just slowly start on one side. Sometimes my little dots connect, sometimes they don't. But we're just going to dust the top edges of these branches a little bit with some snow. Just applying at the very top edges. Be very careful that you don't lose your tree in the snow. I will say if you do apply more snow than you like, you can always come back and add some of your primary color back in. That is what I said at the beginning. It's very forgiving medium. So you can always go back and change anything the way you'd like to. So I'm using the tiny brush to have a little bit more control, just so I can see where it's laying. And then again, if I want to, I can come back and add in a little bit more white for the more snow, or I can add more purples or blues just to blend it in. You want this happy kind of medium between being able to see the darkness of your tree, but also have the snow kind of sitting on the top side of your branches. So we're just going to add some of that in there. Again, try to keep your brush strokes pretty random. You don't necessarily want to have straight lines or perfectly connected dots. Letting your brush stroke kind of rotate a little bit or have some play in it is going to give a more natural feel. These trees are supposed to be in nature, so they are going to have a little bit more irregularity to them. So we're just going to lay some snow down there. So I just started to get my white to mix a little bit with my purple, and so my brush is a little bit tinted now. So I'm just going to clean it out with my water and get that out because I really want that pure, beautiful white for my snow. We're just going to lay this down. Sometimes when I get to the bottom, I let my mark be a little bit bigger by just pressing a little bit harder. And then I get a little bit bigger chunks because the foliage at the top is going to be very fine, and it's actually going to get thicker as it gets towards the bottom. So the way that the snow lays on it is a good way to show that. But generally speaking, it's kind of a messed up line on the top. And I say messed up because I don't want it to be perfect. But these are like kind of dotted, disconnected lines that are just sitting on top of your tree branches with that white. Still letting lots of the tree color show through. When you get to the middle, it can be a little bit confusing because it's not very obvious where your tree branch is coming from, and you don't necessarily want it to look like parted hair. So when I get to the middle, I try to keep just like random little dots going to kind of connect the outside branches without it looking like it's a perfect mirror image on the left and the right. So I just kind of sprinkle little white highlights in throughout the center to keep that from looking like that. It would be really cool too if you wanted to try out different things. I was just thinking you could even like have a blue tint in your white snow. If you wanted to try that like with your red trees, you could definitely do something kind of quirky with it if you wanted to add a color into your snow color too.
I love that.
So I'm at that point where I'm having a hard time stopping. I'm going to try a couple little more things here. If your dots are not connected at all, it may stop looking like the illusion of branches. And I just had that happening down here. So you might have noticed I just connected a little bit more, and then all of a sudden it has the illusion of the branch. So if your dots are so far away from or not connected at all, it might just look like polka dots. But if you just connect some of those lines that do, you know, sit on top of a tree branch, you can get a much more branch-like look. just by the way that the snow on top of it is situated and sitting. But I am having a hard time stopping. So instead of continuing to work on that middle tree, I'm going to move over to some of the side trees and just get those filled in with some snow too.
I love that you say you're having a hard time stopping. I think it's relatable.
It's my struggle. It's my struggle. It's always hard to stop. That's where that stepping away really helps too. Then you know, like, if you actually needed more or not.
Yes.
I guess we're jamming out to some Red Hot Chili Peppers.
I love it.
You never know what Pandora is going to give you, but this is pretty good. So you can kind of see again that same pattern of just kind of connecting the tops of the trees a little bit and adding a little randomness in between the branches so they don't look too perfect. And ultimately, you can use this forever now. I mean, you've learned how to make an evergreen tree. Again, they'll always be different. You can never really make two that are the same, but you can go into it thinking, you know, I'm going to have a skinny tall one. I'm going to have, you know, a round evergreen. You can have all different shapes of these and all different kinds. You'll probably notice them more out in nature now when you're looking around at how different they all are. And I hope that you try this out again. You can now do them even with just an ink pen. You know, you can kind of fill in the blanks and create these basic shapes with just about any kind of medium. So, you know, I did get to make evergreen trees with Bob Ross. So I hope that I've extended a little bit of Bob to all of you. I had a friend find me a t-shirt at a garage sale last week, and it's Bob Ross, and he says, you know, we don't make mistakes. We just turn them into birds. Look, those are birds. So if you need to try again with your evergreens, we can just make them into birds, you know, no big deal. And actually, that is kind of a true thing. You can paint over this too. Once it's dry, if you want to try it again, come back with a video. If you've got anything you want to fix, those are really easy to do with acrylic paints as well, because these just cover over the top of whatever was underneath them. They're very good at covering, high quality paint. So I kind of went through my second two trees a little bit faster. I probably got a little bit ahead of you. But again, don't feel rushed. I'm just gonna hold this up a little bit closer so you can kind of see how far I went with the coverage. And I did cover quite a bit, maybe a little bit more even than I did in my originals. But as long as you've got some of those really deep tones, you can always, and you can see them where your trees are, great. If not, I guess I'll do that too. So let's say I was too heavy-handed and I put too much white in it and I want it to come back a little bit. All you have to do is grab back that main color again and kind of block out some areas with the darker color. If you start to mix with the white, again, just wash your brush out and go back with your main color. So there is a lot of wiggle room, a little bit of give and take, especially once a layer is dry. Then you don't have to worry about it mixing into your current color at all, and you're good to go. The final touch for this painting is to apply snow into the air. This snow could just be primarily at the top if you want it, or you can have it coming all the way down and visible all the way to the ground level. It's definitely going to have its strongest effect up at the very top where all of your darkness is. So for your snow, we're going to use our small brush again and just dip straight into your white. And a little tip for you about how to apply. So we're all, I mean, some people want perfect dots, some people don't care about a little bit of irregularity. But I will say, if you want a really nice dot, come at your canvas at like a 90-degree angle, and you just touch down at that 90-degree and pull straight off. That's going to give you the most round shape. The lighter your touch, obviously the softer or smaller your little bit of snow is going to be. I really think that varying the shape and size of your snow gives it a much more natural feel as well. So I try to sometimes put a couple together so that it's not too perfect, I guess is how I would put that. I don't want them perfectly spaced. I want it to look more natural. So this painting is really therapeutic in that it wants you to kind of be expressive. Don't be, you know, universally the same over and over again. Let there be a little bit of creativity in your shapes and how much you use. So I've got some really tiny ones on there that I was able to get by just barely touching the canvas. Some bigger ones in there. The snow really doesn't show up very much in front of the trees because we've got all that snow on it. It would be very hard to see an actual snowflake on top of the snow-covered evergreen. So I'm just going to focus my snow primarily at the top of the canvas, especially where these darks are. And then also I'm going to wrap around to the top and the sides of the canvas as well, so that when this is hanging on the wall, it doesn't look like the snow just stopped abruptly when it came to the side of the painting. It feels much more natural to wrap it all the way around. So yeah, we're just gonna add in our little snowflakes. As much as as little as you want. And I want to thank you all because we were technically here at our last step. You can always sign your piece. You can write a special little note at the bottom if you want to. If you're not real sure about your handwriting, I always use a piece of chalk at the studio. When I want to try something out without risk, I'll just use a piece of chalk and try it. And if it doesn't work out, I just wipe it off when it's dry because the chalk will come right off and the paint won't. So that's a nice way to, you know, customize your piece without the risk right up front. But yeah, we're gonna just kind of customize these to your liking. Feel free to come back and rewatch it if I got a little bit ahead of you. Also, if you have any questions, please ask. I think we're gonna hang out for a little bit and see if anybody would be interested in sharing their piece. Yeah, thanks for having me, everybody.
Yay! So I'm gonna pop in here and just say, yes, we can hang out for, I mean, another half an hour. So if you are not at a point where you want to share your painting yet, that's totally fine. But I'm gonna ask if you can just to pop in here on the chat and let us know, are you just about done? Do you think you want a little more time? Do you want Melanie and I just to chat while you paint? Tell us where you're at, and that'll give us an idea of how to continue. Barbara is leaving. I hope you have a great evening, Barbara.
Thanks, Barbara.
See here. Sounds like Gemma's doing some snow here. Still adding snow. So Kate's adding snow to all her different colors of trees. Awesome. Okay. Denatra's leaving. Goodbye, Denatra.
Bye. Thank you.
Yes, if you're done and you don't want to stick around, you're ready to go, that is totally fine. We are not offended. If you come here and painted your painting and you've got other stuff to do, see you later. Thanks for coming.
Yes. Yeah, thanks for joining us. This is really cool. And thank you so much, Laura, for inviting me and organizing all of this. I thought it was really cool.
I'm going to come back in with some video here. Hello, everybody. I'm back. Yes, Melanie, we're so happy to have you. Honestly, you are a fabulous painter and a lovely teacher. So I am so happy. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Let's see here. We've got somebody interested in sharing. Let me see who it is.
Oh, awesome. I'm going to take a picture of my camera. A lot of times in my classes, I'll take progress pictures and end result pictures, and I'll post them all online for everybody. And so I'm just gonna take a picture of my computer.
Yeah, do it. Okay, Adriana, I'm gonna see if we can get you set up to share. So I'm promoting you now. All right. I'm gonna unspot.
Oh my
Oh my gosh!
Oh, that's wonderful.
See if I can spotlight her.
Yes. Oh my
Oh my
goodness.
gosh,
One is
That is
bigger
beautiful.
and the other is smaller.
Say what?
That one is bigger and the other is smaller.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's stunning. You did a better job than I did.
No, it looks wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and anybody else? Oh, okay. Thank you, Adriana.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're gonna come back here. Green is ready to share. Yes. So excited to see the green.
Oh,
Okay.
let's see the green.
All right, Kate, we're gonna get you set up here in just a moment, except for maybe your, there we go. All right. Dee, thank you. Dee says thanks. Let's see, she said, Melanie, great instruction. And she said, great job putting the kits together. So thank you. Melanie kind of gave me some advice on how to get these ready for you. So thank you. I had fun.
Yeah, well, she was an artist. I was worried at first. I'm like, oh, but she turns out she knew what she was doing.
We made it happen. Teamwork.
Yeah.
Okay, Kate's joining us here, so we're gonna go ahead and see if we can make this happen. If you're being prompted to share video, Kate, go ahead and do it. I am not able to ask you to share it for some reason, so I don't know if that's just because your camera's not on. Okay, here we go. She says they're trying to sign up on a different device, so no worries. We'll see if we can make it happen. Anybody have any questions or anything for Melanie? We've got another person who's ready to share, so that's awesome. Evisa, I'm gonna go ahead and see if we can get you going while we wait for Kate here. So I have sent it to you. All right.
I did the red one.
Hello.
Oh, cool.
It's wonderful.
Think about that, turning your canvas sideways to have a bigger landscape. That's so smart.
I love it. Yeah, I didn't even think about anybody doing that. I love it. It looks so good.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I love your colors.
I know. I'm like, oh, go ahead.
Oh, it's just I'm saying I love to explore, you know, and to take a challenge.
We did great.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. Okay.
I agree. I love the colors of it's like a muted kind of, I don't know, what color would you call that, Melanie?
Well, it's soft red, which might be like on the verge of pink.
Yeah.
I guess.
It's like
Yeah,
more
and the reds did lend themselves to a lot of softer, kind of lighter pink tones because, you know, red and white. But yeah, that was really beautiful and soft. Even it was a much softer than my version of the red for sure.
Yeah.
So many options. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna hide you, Evisa. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, let's see here. Kate, I'm gonna come back to you. I'm still not getting an option for your video, so I don't know if you want to rejoin back on the other device you were on. We can try that. And May, your video is not working. Please feel free to send in a photo of your painting to the email. I believe I provided both the library's email and then also Melanie. So if you want to share your final paintings with us, we can do it that way. Okay, May sent us an email. Great. All right, Gemma is ready to share, so I'm gonna see if we can get that going on here. Or Gemma, if I'm saying your name right or wrong, please tell me. I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Hello and welcome.
Hello. I would like to share mine. It's a kind of pink.
Oh, that is pretty. That is
Maybe
really
the light is not so good in that way. So let's see.
It looks good.
Thank you, Melanie, for your job. I enjoyed a lot.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much. Thank you. I was really happy to be here.
Thank you for sharing.
I can
Thank
see
you.
your face.
It looks wonderful. Thank you so much. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank
Oh.
you.
All right, I'm gonna see here. I'm gonna re-spotlight Melanie here while we see if anybody else is ready to share.
Oh, this is like my favorite part. I love actually seeing people so much and hearing.
I know, it's like, it makes it like all comes to life. It's like you've been talking to your computer and then now it's like, oh my gosh, there were 30 people here.
Yeah, this is good stuff for me. Thank you.
Okay, cool. We've got somebody else here. Erin is here with Kate, so welcome both of you. I'm gonna get you set up here. Maybe. So tell me if you should be getting an invite to join as a panelist.
Just jam into my tunes.
I love it. All right. Thanks everybody for bearing with us as we kind of navigate this fun screen sharing stuff. Okay. Erin with Kate. Getting close. I haven't heard this song. Something strange happened. I don't know what. I'm sorry, everybody. Well, I don't know. Let's see if I got anybody else ready here. Oh, yay. We can see you. All right. I don't know. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool, the green. Oh, I love your tree so much. Yeah, that's super unusual. So did you just have green paint?
She's muted.
We brought our own green paint. We brought our own green paint. We brought our own green paint. We brought our own green paint.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. I think we've got lots of videos going on, so I'm stopping their video. I think there was a feedback issue with multiple devices connecting to the webinar, so sorry I had to abruptly kick you out there. That green was awesome.
That was so cool, and the moon, I loved it.
I know, I love seeing the different customizations we can have here. So I haven't been super paying attention to the chat, so I'm gonna pop in here and see if anybody else is here. Maria, thank you for coming. So glad that you were able to attend. And just so everyone knows, yes, they did bring they had their own green paint. So that's awesome. Sounds like you already got a little painting background, maybe.
She was probably like, what are you doing? They're evergreens.
Yeah, why didn't you provide green?
I need them in all the other colors. I don't know. You know, weird artists. But yeah, they are supposed to be green, I guess.
I love it. No, I love it. I think all of it is awesome. I love that you have green paint and you're just using it. I love that people are able to customize their own colors, mixing the red and the blue together, making pink, just the red. It's wonderful. Okay, I have somebody else ready to share. I would just want to make sure, Betsy, I'm going to go ahead and get you set up here to be a panelist. Let's see. Okay, so we got Betsy here. Let's see if she can get joined up.
Hello.
Good. Hello. Let me see. Ah!
Oh, so cool. I'm making
love
mine
it.
big.
Trying to look on the.
Oh, beautiful. I love it in the reds. That's very nice. Everybody did so good with these evergreen trees.
I know. I agree. Everyone's trees are very impressive, and they're all like a little bit different. It's great.
Yeah, I didn't tell you all that, well, trees aren't really easy. So this isn't like really that easy of a thing because it takes a lot of, you know, kind of practice, but I'm glad that I was able to break it down in a way that made sense to you.
I love it. Oh, I got to check. Okay, thank you. It sounds like that was Robbie, not Betsy, so sorry. my mistake. Thank you for sharing.
Thank
All right,
you.
go ahead and
Wonderful.
just a second. Okay, thank you so much. I know it's kind of funny. I know people use each other's Zoom accounts sometimes, so sometimes the names aren't even behind the camera, so sorry.
Awful. It's not awful, not even close.
All right, so let's see here. I have just one more thing I will share with you if you have a moment. So I'm going to chat. May shared her painting via email, so I'm just going to pop in and check my email here and see if I can pull up hers and share it. But in the meantime, Melanie, do you have anything you want to add? I think we're just about wrapped up, but if not, no worries. I can always
You
wrap it
know,
up.
it's kind of nice for me. I don't have to clean up any of your stuff. So I guess be careful when you're cleaning up. Again, the acrylic paints, they're not very nice on fabric, but I will say, because we over portioned, you can probably put your lids back on these and they'll stay good for at least a couple weeks, if not longer. So if you've got access to your canvas, or if you want to try this in different colors, you can come back and redo this. You can just use your paints to do whatever you want with and try, you know, something creative on your own. But these should, if you've got any extra, I would hang on to that. If you want to be creative and keep the flow going, you can definitely do that. And then obviously the brushes are yours to keep as well. So I just rinse those out in Dawn dish soap and water and just wring them out really good. You can reuse those too. I saw somebody say that the box that it came in made a good easel. It'll also make a good place for you to kind of let this dry. Acrylic paints dry fairly quickly. We did apply it pretty thick with the snow, so you might want to maybe give it 20-30 minutes. But the way you can tell if your paint is dry is if you hold it at an angle to the light, you can actually, I can see which dabs are wet because of the shininess on it. So just a little indicator there so you know when it's completed and it's completely dry. Once they are dry, these can be hung on the wall with, I usually just use a couple thumbtacks since they're so lightweight, and it's really nice, easy to hang up. Double check your edges so that those wrap all the way around. No, I think that's it.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to pop in here and share my screen because I did receive May's painting and
Oh,
it is
wonderful.
pretty cool. So let me see here. Okay, so I just want to show you. She did something totally different. I need to get rid of some of this here, but yeah, so she really took some creative license with her painting, and I love that. I love seeing all the different things. Can you see that on your screen, Melanie?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Perfect.
She really incorporated all 3 of the colors that she could have used. There's blues and purples and reds, and almost a pastel version of all of them too. Like just very, very pretty, very light, very like happy feelings I get from that. Very neat, very creative.
Yeah, it's a little more stylized too. So I think too, like just throwing it out there, if you have more paint, the canvases aren't super expensive. You can also repurpose canvases like Melanie was saying. So I'll sometimes get them from like a thrift store or garage sale or whatever, and you can just paint right over them instead of spending money on new ones. So anyway, these would make great gifts if you're looking for gifts to give people and you've got extra paint. Why not?
Yeah, you can also use these acrylics on like little boxes, or you can pretty much paint anything with acrylic paints. Even like wood, for example, is a really nice one that I use acrylic paints on a lot. You can paint on metal. So really, even if you've got something laying around and you want to fancy it up a little bit, you can even add like a little evergreen with some snow, and all of a sudden you've got a holiday box or a seasonal box that you could give as a gift. It's a great idea.
I love it. I love it. Okay, anybody have any questions for us? Otherwise, I think we're just gonna get wrapped up here. So pause for a second, see if anything comes in. May, thank you so much for coming. Adriana, thank you for coming. Divya, I'm trying to see who else we have left in here. Merv, D, Ada, thank you all. All
Yes,
right. Looking. Oh, thank you, Gemma or Gema, or however you pronounce your name. Thank you for coming. She says, thank you so much, Melanie, for your time, and thanks to the library for holding this event. So thank you for coming. Yep, we're gonna go ahead and get wrapped up here. Everybody's heading out. So Crafty Adults will be happening in December as well. I'll be teaching a beginning weaving class, so we're gonna at least get started on making a woven wall hanging. We may or may not finish. I haven't decided how detailed we're gonna get with that one yet, so we'll see. Registration will open on December 1st, so look for that. You can register on the website. But thank you, Melanie, for coming. Thank you for jumping in and sharing your creativity with everybody. I think it was much needed for everyone just to take a break and work on a little painting. So Melanie, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Yeah, my pleasure. Anytime.
All right, and feel free to check Melanie's stuff out on Facebook, but we're going to go ahead and say goodbye. So thank you everybody for coming, and we'll see you for the next Crafty Adult.